On this edition of Artifacts, theater of the electronic kind.
Theater on stage, theater on paper.
And in an interesting twist, you'll hear about art exhibitions that have no name.
Find out what the heck we're talking about by staying with us for Artifacts, coming right up.
Hello, I'm Janet Zahn, the coordinator of the Office of Film, Video, and Recording.
And I'm Phill, Lindsay, the art specialist at the Minneapolis Community Development Agency. And as usual, we have a terrific group of guests on the show, starting with the theater on stage, as director Peter Moore tells us about his upcoming show, 4 Dogs and a Bone.
Then Elizabeth Crawford joins Phill to talk about no-name exhibitions.
Followed by a visit with playwright Anna Welsbacher, who will be here to tell us about writing for the theater and also her work as a theater critic.
And finally, the Minnesota Electronic Theater. Larry Lamb of Lamb & Company, Daniel Gumnit of IVL, and Stan Bissinger of SIGGRAPH, that's the Special Interest Group on Computer Graphics, will be here to talk about this 6th annual computer animation exhibition at the Fine Line Music Cafe.
Also tucked into the program, a short video of Eiji from the Minnesota Orchestra. So hold on to your hats. It's going to be a whirlwind of a show. I'll be back with Peter Moore right after a locally produced animated commercial for Monopoly created by Lamb & Company.
Snookums, lend me some money to buy Marvin Gardens.
Huh? Snooze and lose, Mom. Bought it this morning.
Whoa! You've inherited $100.
I'll take that toward what you owe me for staying at my Boardwalk Hotel.
Don't forget the $200 you still owe for riding my 4 railroads.
You're going directly to jail, fella. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200.
Oh.
Monopoly, a nice, ruthless, money-hungry family game.
Well, that was a nice look. Larry Lamb & Company always does a good job on those things. So later in the show, when Janet's talking about the Minnesota Electronic Theater, I really urge you to watch this and then maybe plan on checking that out. Fun piece there on the Monopoly. Our first guest is an old friend and local director, actor, spokesman for different products, Peter Moore. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
Nice to have you here.
Nice to see you, Phill.
And Peter's here to talk about, among other things, an upcoming show that New Classic Theater is doing next month called
4 Dogs and a Bone is
Yeah.
the name of the show, and it's a terrific comedy by the guy who wrote Moonstruck, whose name is John Patrick Shanley. He won an Academy Award for his screenplay for Moonstruck a couple of years ago, and he's very popular off Broadway. His plays are his dramas are kind of urban and gritty, and actors like them. Actors like being able to get into doing all of that stuff. This is a comedy, and it's based on his own experiences in Hollywood. It's based on his dealing with producers and actresses.
Was it around Moonstruck or just more generally his experiences?
Probably
in
more
Hollywood?
generally. The characters in the play are 2 actresses, a producer, and a screenwriter, and they are all very charming, very funny, and really awful people.
Right, and they're the dogs.
They're the dogs.
They're the dogs.
Bone, in the title, is the movie that they're all working on, that they're all trying to manipulate to their own end. And if that means a little backstabbing, if that means a little double dealing, if that means a little promiscuity, well, so be it. This is all for our careers, right?
Well, I have to say, when I've mentioned to people, oh yeah, we're going to have Peter on, he's going to talk about the show, oh, what show is he doing? And I mentioned Shanley. Everybody that I talk with, they either light up or they get kind of excited because he is very popular. In what
He's very
doing.
popular. People know him outside the theater a little bit. Actors, of course, love to do his work because it is very meaty. You know, there's a lot to hang on to there. And the language, his language is very tough, but he's like a literate thug. I mean, there's a lot of 4-letter words, a lot of kind of shocking language, but the way it's put together, it all flows. The words themselves are very important in the play, and it's certainly not a difficult piece to understand. It's not like it's obscure or anything. It's just watching these people manipulate back and forth, trying to.
How would you describe the pace of this?
It clips along.
It does. So it's a fast-paced comedy.
Fast comedy. Yeah. I mean, this is Hollywood, Phill. Time is money.
Yeah, time is money. Let's get with it. Let's do the show.
Things pop right along, and. There's an older actress and a younger actress, and of course, the older actress is concerned that she's starting to get a little too old because, after all, she's about 30 now, and
which is ancient
too old
in
Hollywood. That's right, and as she says, she needs this movie to be a success because she says, if this is a success, then I'm still a leading lady. If it's not, then I'm somebody's dying aunt for the rest of my career.
Yeah.
And the younger actress, of course, it's her first film, and she got there not on her talent, shall we say.
On something else, perhaps.
On some other talents that she might have. And she wants it to be a hit because this will make her a star, and the screenwriter wants it to be a hit because it'll establish him.
Yeah.
And the producer needs it to be a hit because it'll help his family life. His wife is after him to get him to make more money. He needs to help out his family a little bit. And everybody is doing whatever they need to do to make this thing
I could get real serious, and let's hold this thought for a moment, because that is a fast-paced industry out there. And this is a play, obviously, that takes a whack at that. But I had a preliminary question. How do you find the shows that you want to do?
A lot of them, I pay attention to what's going on off Broadway. Shows that are a small cast are doing well, seem to have gotten some attention, both critically and from an audience. Things that haven't been done here, new plays. I love doing original plays.
Yeah.
We've had world premieres of several plays.
Well, I was going to say, you've brought some nice shows to town that I, at the time anyhow, didn't know anyone else had done. They're often area premieres.
Right. Well, we try to do area premieres, whether they're shows that may have been seen in New York, but they certainly haven't been seen here. And a number of the plays we've done have been original scripts. People like David Fields, Leslie Brody, a number of playwrights who have gone on to do some good and interesting things. We've done the originals of their work.
We were talking before we started taping that you had been spending, you're from here originally, but you'd spent some time out east, out in the New York area, came back to the Twin Cities with the idea, among other things, to create a new classic. Why was that?
Well, in New York, part of the difficulty of being in New York is that you have absolutely no power whatsoever. You don't have any say in what goes on. You don't have any control over what happens on stage. And I was in one terrible play after another in New York, all these little basement theaters where you had to step over the winos to get into the theater, and terrible plays where dreadful things happened, and people being artistes, people taking all sorts of internal stock of themselves on stage, and you're thinking, please, I've got a bus to catch. I mean, it was, come on, let's go, let's do some good work, let's do some good theater. And that's where this came about. We don't pay very much money to the actors, but we are associated with Actors Equity, the Actors Union. So professional actors can work with us. And it's kind of like a showcase in that you're not going to make much money, but you're going to get to play a great part. And that's why we've been able to get some of the terrific actors that we have, because I try to pick plays that have kind of show-off parts for actors. And consequently, some of the people who have since, in the last few years, kind of made a name for themselves here in town, I like teasing them that they started with us. Bob Davis at the Guthrie started with us. Buffy Sedlacek, a well-known actress and playwright in town. A lot of people who have since are making good livings as actors and playwrights and directors and doing good work in the theater kind of first came to some notice and some attention at the new classic.
And you've got some good people in the show. I noticed in the release you sent me that
some terrific people.
They're known folks.
Three well-known actors locally: Bill Shopert, Patrick Coyle, who's also a playwright, and Virginia Burke, and a newcomer named Chris Masty, who is terrific. And I think we're gonna see quite a bit more from her. It's fast. It clips right along. It's very funny. It's a little on the raunchy side, but again, this is John Patrick Shanley, so it's not gratuitous. There's nothing gratuitous about any of the language or any of the things that go on in the show. It's quite a good night in the theater.
Well, before we forget, it opens November 8th.
Right.
At the Theater Garage.
At the Theater Garage, which is on Franklin and Lyndale.
Kind of on the north end of what we call the Lyndale Cultural Corridor.
Exactly.
We did a little piece on that, and they really anchor that part of a lot of cultural stuff going on in Minneapolis.
Well, it's very visible. The theater is very visible. It's a lovely spot. It's a nice theater to come into. It's a nice, a pleasant place to sit. Rudolph's is right across the street.
Yeah, so before or after the show, you can connect.
Well, people know it. People know where it is. They've been there. The area is recognizable. It's safe. It's easy to get to. There's parking.
Parking's decent. Yeah, that's right. And if people wanted to phone in about reservations or something, do you have a number in your head you could?
I do. It's at 645-1593.
Okay.
Is the number you can call anytime. You'll get our box office.
We'll have that up on the screen so people can call for that. The theater world, especially as you describe it, it's either somewhere on a dog-eat-dog basis out in New York, stepping over the winos, as you say, or locally where people are starting out, we're able to stay a little closer to mission. We were talking about the movie industry, which is closely related. I mean, you've worked in all the media that you can with your talent. And I know another thing you and I share is the love of baseball.
Sure.
We play ball together and stuff like that. And I was thinking about something that baseball, the professional baseball field, holds in common with Hollywood, and that's the inflated price tag.
That's certainly
And
true.
I'm wondering what you think. I mean, is it just going to deflate at some point? I mean, how far can they go with the bigger and bigger budgets, the more highly paid actors?
Well, I think what comes up does have to come down. I think it's going to take something very serious, though. It's going to take an earthquake in Hollywood, literally.
Literally, just a physical
It's going
problem.
to take a demolition of the industry physically as we know it. Of course, I think an actor making $12 million for a movie, of course, is ridiculous unless you happen to be the actor.
That's right.
Making $12 million, which is the problem. Nobody's going to say, "Oh no, pay me less." Although, actually, on some occasions they do.
For the right project.
For the right
sometimes.
project.
Yeah.
I think with actors and with baseball players' salaries, they are way inflated, and but that's nothing any of us can do anything about.
Right.
And the nature of the business is such that I had an audition for Grumpier Old Men, the sequel that's shooting here in town to Grumpy Old Men. And it was a small part. It was what we call a day player part, which means you'll be on the set for a day. They'll do your whole part in one day, your 2 little scenes or 4 little lines or whatever it is, and you're out. Well, several of us auditioned for the part, and we didn't hear anything about who got it. Well, we found out later that the part went to Max Wright, who is a very well-known character actor in Hollywood. He's on TV series after TV series. He's in a lot of movies on Broadway. And I thought, if Max Wright, this very well-known, very big deal actor, is playing a day player part, where does that leave the rest of us?
Yeah.
That shows you how kind of tight it is.
That
out
is
there.
competitive.
The scramble for work is very competitive.
Which leads right back to 4 Dogs and a Bone.
Exactly. Fortunately, nobody had to do anything terrible to get this audition or to try to get
That's
this
right.
part. But I suppose it makes you wonder, okay, what would you do? To what lengths would you go?
Yeah.
To,
if this is something that you had a great need to do.
Exactly.
You wanted to do it.
Everyone has to determine. I like to say that since things have gone fairly well for me these last few years, I've been able to afford some principles that you can say, no, I won't do an advertisement for something I don't believe in, a political candidate I don't believe in, a product I don't like, cigarettes, pesticides, something like that. Well, 10 years ago, I might very well have said, oh, a Marlboro ad? Fine, I'm there. Or, oh, an ad for 2,4-D? Great, sign me up.
Yeah.
It's...
But that's
you
part
have
of
to
breaking
test
into the
yourself.
business and forging your way forward. So.
Right, but you do, those are the questions that always come up, whether, would you rather be poor and sleep well at night or rich and feeling guilty? That's
And then hopefully
that's the
maybe
question you
earn enough
answer.
to get those principles you were talking
Exactly.
about. Peter, thanks for coming on. We've run out of time for this. 4 Dogs and a Bone, November 8th, Theater Garage, South Minneapolis.
Great. Thanks
Thank you very much.
Phill. My
nice to have you
pleasure.
on. Well, coming up, Elizabeth Crawford of No Name Exhibitions. But first, we're going to take a look at an art quote from former President Ronald Reagan. Stay tuned. And we have to remember that Ronald Reagan was an actor. Well, my next guest is somebody that I've known for a little bit, but she's involved with a very exciting project over at No Name Exhibitions, and I want to introduce Elizabeth Crawford. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're here because we have a lot of questions to ask about an organization called No Name and about a new facility you all are developing called the Soap Factory. Let's start with No Name. What is it and what's the mission of No Name Exhibitions?
No Name Exhibitions is a nonprofit, mid-size arts organization that I believe our first shows went out to the public about 1988. And we have been showing and supporting the work of emerging artists ever since then in whatever location we're in. Yeah. And to us that means that artists working in any medium coming to us at out of an academic career, out of something they've just been developing in their home. It doesn't matter where they've been. If we see that they're doing quality work and they're committed to that path, then we offer them an opportunity at the gallery. And what that means is often visual exhibitions or performance exhibitions or shows.
Yeah, I've noticed you have performance art as well as
yes, we do.
Items on sculptural or items on the wall. Yeah.
And that developed second after the visual shows. When we began in 1988, it was just visual exhibitions, and it became more and more clear that there was a wealth of talent and possibility out there in the performing arts, and we started connecting performance events to the visual art openings, and now it's certainly as important and as powerful a program at No Name.
And I've noticed too that you often program a performance piece in conjunction with the opening of another exhibition that you might do.
Yes, and there's a simple reason for that, partly because you can kind of consolidate audiences. And,
good point. Okay.
Yeah, and one sort of leads into the other, but we also, the curators sometimes thematically tie them in and then get even more of a look at a specific theme by going out of one medium.
Well, and that vision that you talk about as it's evolved at No Name really informs what you're doing with this new space. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, how it came to you and what you're planning on doing there?
Sure. We were not looking for the opportunity to own a building. I have to admit that it sort of happened into our view. Not that the building just happened, but the possibility for it just happened.
Sort of induced the structure.
Right. And we spent a lot of time thinking about, well, I can back up a little bit. The opportunity came to us through one of the individuals who works as a volunteer for us, David Gravy, and he knew that this building was up for sale and looked at it and realized that it's not something that one artist should use, it's something that No Name should use. And at that point, it was the Pillsbury Corporation that owned the building, and we pursued the possibility of gaining ownership ourselves.
And we should point out, this is down on the Minneapolis riverfront.
Yes.
So it's in really a historic part of where the city started.
Yeah, we feel very lucky to have it be in that location. It just as the Stone Arch Bridge path ends, the building begins.
So I think of it as another part of that puzzle, with everything that's happening on both sides of the river, and then of course that wonderful sweeping Stone Arch Bridge almost sort of leads right over to your new doors there.
Yeah.
Now, you've called it in materials that I've seen, and on the phone you said the soap factory. Somebody just having a good shower one morning and said, let's name this thing? I mean, what happened with that?
Well, the building, gosh, I wish I could remember how many years it was operating as a soap factory, but literally the National Purity Soap Company had their home there for many, many years, and it was functioning as that factory until 1992. So
that recently?
That recently. It was only not occupied for 2 years. And during that whole time, of course, the Pillsbury Corporation did own it, but it was functioning as their factory, as the Purity Company's factory. And so if you walk into the building, you will see lots of evidence of soap. You don't have to remember that it was a soap factory. You will see that it's a soap factory.
Well, you brought a few images with us to kind of walk us through a little bit. Why don't you start talking about what's there? Now, I realize these are photographs, and people really should wait to get in there sometime, but what did you bring?
Well, I brought a couple different views. It's a corner building, and why don't I start with the corner then? This is, if you were looking at the soap factory from the corner of 2nd Street and 5th Avenue Southeast, this is what you would see. It's the bold, red brick of the older section of the building. You know what? I just said this wrong. This is 5th Avenue, and this is the railroad tracks that are just before Main Street.
Yeah.
This, excuse me, up here would be the corner of 2nd Street and 5th Avenue.
Okay.
So it has a real prominent, as you come upon the building, there's, you can't
real
miss
presence,
it really.
yeah.
The lighter colored brick here is the newer section of the building.
Okay.
And you can tell this goes up 3 stories, and that's 2 stories over there. I'll just show you one other exterior view here. This is from along 2nd Street, and what used to function as the loading dock there, which we anticipate would still continue to be a loading dock, but we are speaking with the community about the possibility of a green space right there. It's an open space that really, we would never build on it, and
nice connection over to Hennepin Bluffs Park there with another green space.
And there's residential, there's homes right across the street, and that community is very interesting in how the industry ends and the homes begin, and the schools.
It's a nice
and stuff like
montage.
that. Yeah, right. Our architects and put these together for us.
Yeah, and they're a firm in Southeast Minneapolis.
Southeast, right. And we came together because they were just excited about what we were doing, and it's a pretty great match.
They have a nice mix of art and architecture, I think, in their own background, so that's great.
And a very social mission in their look at architecture as well. This is a view onto the 1st floor. The photos are probably going to be a little dark because at this time many of the windows were boarded, so you couldn't see. But it looks very much like a warehouse with wood floors and the brick walls, and there's many wonderful small spaces.
And I think I see a little soap in the corner there. Just a little scuffed over there.
And like I said, you wouldn't have to look very hard if you were actually in the building.
Now, you have an exhibition coming up soon that'll actually take place in part of this.
Yes, actually on the first floor is where
Yeah.
the exhibition will take place, and the entire building is 40,000 square feet, and the first floor being the largest, of all the floors. The exhibition would cover all the area of the first floor. It's a shared exhibition, but we're not. Well, it's the Walker Arts Center actually initiated the whole process, and they came to us interested in looking for a space for one of the artists that are exhibiting in their Brilliant show. One of the, I believe there's 22 British artists coming in for the exhibition, and one of those artists required a rawer space that he needed to really take over and make into an installation. So they
This
knew
looks
what.
pretty appropriate.
Yes, it's
Before
very
I forget,
raw.
when does that show go up? Do you know?
October 21st. It's a
Okay.
Saturday night.
Great.
And I believe viewing at the Soap Factory for the Walker would begin about 9 p.m. And No Name will be using the rest of the first floor that the Walker isn't using for our installations, and that also would be open for the public on
So a
October
great
21st.
introduction. That's great.
Yeah.
To the Soap Factory. Now,
Yeah.
earlier in the month, No Name has another show going up at the space you're more currently in.
Yes.
Up river a bit. What's that about?
In our home right now, the Grain Belt Brewery Complex, there's a show going up on October 14th.
14th?
It's a Saturday, and it's Stevie Rexroth, and I should look, and Christian Nielsen. And they'll be showing for about 5 weeks after that. And there
Great.
will be, of course, be a performance event concurrent with that opening.
Do you intend to do a lot of sort of double shows, or is this sort of the first pancake, as it were, down at the Soap Factory, and then you'll wait till you get it more developed, or?
We are not going to be at the Grain Belt site after December of '95. So
okay.
we have, I believe it's 3 more shows, actual
Okay.
visual and performing shows there, and then we're going to focus on the Soap Factory.
So the new year is the Soap Factory.
The new year's
Wow.
a Soap Factory, and because of the amount of renovation that needs to happen in the building, we will just, that won't be open to the public after these openings coming up at the Soap Factory. And that's what is so nice about having the opening, because
Yeah.
it's sort of the first flash, and then we'll
That's right.
shut off, and then we're hoping that by the fall of '96 we would be
Good.
able
Well,
to.
that's very
open.
exciting. Elizabeth, what do you do with No Name yourself? What's your role?
My title at No Name is board chair, and
Oh, so it all falls on you.
no.
You've got a crew there to help out?
Yes, No Name from the very beginning has been, the attitude has been that a very collaborative attitude, and although I have a lot of responsibility, I feel very well supported in the organization, and it was at one point entirely volunteer, not a penny towards the staff or the operations of the
Well, the
gallery.
origins were in the Minneapolis warehouse district, am I right?
Right.
And as I recall in those days, everything, I mean, from those folks that were at the receiving line for an opening to those people that were curating,
Yeah.
everything was volunteer.
Everything was volunteer, and as soon as we got some cash, we stipended our artists, and we did that for years before anybody on staff
So started
was
with the
able
artists and then moved into some staffing
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
We've only got about a moment left, but I
Sure.
did want to get your opinion. Obviously, No Name is going in great places. You're creating space for other artists and other organizations. Quick take from you on the kind of the current state of alternative spaces for artists. I mean, obviously there are more in the Twin Cities that are producing than No Name can handle at any one time.
Right.
Are we in good shape, or there's still great need, or what?
Well, I've been looking at this point of view of the opportunity of the Soap Factory, that because funds are being more tightly held by foundations or funders in general, that the Soap Factory, I don't think I've mentioned, is not just going to be the home to No Name exhibitions, but will be 3/4 of the space will be given over to other nonprofit arts, cultural, and educational organizations. So if I was to say something about what I see, is that we're trying to create a non-competitive, collaborative approach to the overall well-being of the arts in this community, and the possibility for collaboration is really high when you're all in the same space. But
Yeah.
that's what I see as people looking. We share the same problems, the same visions in general, and that working together, that we'll have a tremendous amount of strength. So I don't think we're looking at a downward curve. I don't think
Well,
we're
good.
looking at that at
Okay.
all. I think we're seeing new solutions that will actually end up
Great.
giving us the longevity that we need.
Well, thank you for doing it, and best of luck in the renovation and the preparation.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, it's been nice to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll be back in a moment, but first we're going to meet, by way of a clip here, the new director, music director at the Minnesota Orchestra, Eiji Owe, someone who I noticed has more vowels in his name than almost anybody except maybe Edo Devart. And then I'll be back to talk with playwright and critic Ann Welsbacher. Stay tuned.
If you like great music, this is the year you've got to go hear the Minnesota Orchestra.
I want to conduct every concert and treat this concert like my last concert. Every moment should be special. I want to give them the best.
Well, that guy's been everywhere, and I was actually a little hesitant to even put another Eiji thing on here, but he's got a lot of dynamism, and I think he's going to be good news for the Minnesota Orchestra, which means good news for the local art scene. Well, my next guest is somebody who is a writer 3 or 4 times over, and I'm really excited to have her on here. Ann Welsbacher, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.
Now, I first heard of you by reading in Performance Twin Cities, one of your reviews, some criticism you wrote, and I thought, a critic. But then I also know that you're a playwright, and have been involved in theater a little bit beyond that, I understand. But you have a journalism background.
Yes,
What is it about writing that thrills you so much?
Well, I started writing when I was about 7, I suppose, stories and poems, and just always did it.
So creatively.
Creative writing, yeah. And my undergrad degree was in creative writing. I got a fiction degree, which is totally useless. And
as long as the degree is real.
Yeah, the degree was real. I was a waitress and very happy as a waitress, and then decided to get a grad degree. And I poked around in theater a lot in undergrad school, and I was a good chorus member, but I knew I wasn't going to want to do that as a performer. So criticism was one thing I thought about, and did quite a bit of, actually. Came up here to be that formally, and was halfway as a critic, theater critic.
No kidding.
I wanted to live somewhere where I would enjoy the city, and I think Minneapolis is a great theater town.
Okay, well now, to clear up any confusion on the part of people watching, you came up here from...
Up here from Kansas.
Kansas,
which is the South to the folks around here. We don't think of it as the South in Kansas.
It's down there. Well, but it is the Midwest.
It is the Midwest. It's a bit Western, and I moved up here about 15 years ago.
Oh, okay. So this is not new territory.
No, this is home now.
But I don't know that I've ever met anyone who actually came up here to do criticism. Was it the amount of things to write about?
Yes, exactly. Okay. It was a good school, and I liked the community, and so I actually was headed for that direction. I ended up not taking an internship at the Strib, and that who knows what direction that would have taken me. But I got an internship with a magazine in town, and kind of shifted gears into magazine writing. I've been in editorial work for about a decade now.
Yeah, and something I didn't know, that you're currently over at the Science Museum.
Yes.
So just about every waking moment for Ann Welsbacher is a writing.
Yes.
Is that hard? I mean, when you're going from, forgive me if I'm wrong, but fairly dry stuff probably for the magazine and the stuff there. I mean, useful, but it's not creative. And then you get home, and is it hard to shift gears?
Well, actually, it's hard to be doing something so close to what I'm doing. I've probably gotten 3/4 of my playwriting ideas from the Science Museum. Science is a fascinating topic. And one script I wrote was about a computer program who kind of took on a personality of his own, fell in love with the woman who wrote him. And the idea for that came from my work at the Science Museum.
Well, that's a fascinating idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they work with each other very nicely. They use different sides of my brain.
Yeah.
They're a little hard on my eyes.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time in front of a computer, and now with the internet, I'm on a computer all the time.
Oh, so even more words are coming into this.
Yes.
You're connected to the cyber reality.
Yeah.
Well, now, what are you picking up on the internet in this regard? Other writers?
Other writers, other playwrights. It's a new form of communicating that I think is great for writers, because it's the best of letter writing, and it's the best of person-to-person talking. I don't like talking on the phone, but I love talking to people on the computer.
Internet.
Yes.
Well, that's interesting. Have you verged into any of this, the writing? I went to a conference at the College of Art and Design a couple years ago, where some writers are experimenting with sort of interactive writing, where the reader can really create the story.
Yes, I haven't done any of that, but it's going on. yeah.
Now that would make me a little squeamish as a writer.
Yeah, I still like theater in particular needs to be in a space. You know, you need to be there with other people.
Well, speaking of theater, self-account theater, you were part of creating that.
That's right. That's right. That operation was founded by Randy Latimer, who's a fine playwright in the area, and Brad Lowry. And I came in and did some PR work for them for about 2 years. And actually, Randy and I dramaturged a play that never happened that would have been wonderful, Caucasian Shock Circle. We had a cast. We had done some lovely things to it. But,
and this was going to be a
production. Yes. And there was an illness in the family. We weren't able to do it.
Tough.
Last summer, we did an original play festival of one-acts. We did 6 one-acts in 4 weeks, and it was a wonderful experience.
That's busy.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Well, how do you put together the critical role with the creative writing role? I mean, does that put you in an awkward position?
Yes, and that was one reason I kind of left criticism, actually. I think there are a lot of real prickly areas when those two get too friendly with each other. I don't know how to solve some of the dilemmas, because people who write about theater are going to find out, are going to become friends with theater people, are going to be involved with that world, but
I've often thought Mike Steele must be a lonely man somewhere. I don't know.
Or it would be very hard. I've written reviews. My father's in theater, and I wrote a couple of reviews about shows that he was involved in that weren't very favorable, and the house was a little chilly for a few days.
Is this back in Kansas?
Back in
so
Kansas,
he's not watching this show?
No.
How was his acting?
He's fantastic.
Oh, he is fantastic.
And I'm not just saying that as a daughter. Right. He's a wonderful actor.
So that must have had something to do with your interest in creative writing at the age of 7, you say. Yes. I mean, that's young for somebody to say, I'm going to grow up and starve and write.
Yeah. Well, I'm very lucky I'm not starving.
Well, that is good, yeah.
The job at the museum is something that sometimes seems frustrating to have a day job, but the older I get, the more I realize that I need something like that.
Most of us do.
Yeah.
Do they ever let you kind of run a little bit, pull a couple edges loose on some of the copywriting you do over there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
It's a creative group. I'm in the marketing area, and they need creativity, so we're always bouncing ideas.
Does the marketing itself ever inspire anything you're going to write above a play or something? You mentioned the computer.
Not really. Yeah. No, it's more the science material.
Death of a marketer or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. So current projects, what are you working on right now? Anything you care to? I mean, some writers don't want to jinx. The great American novel here, but
I finished a script that actually it's a 3-character script, and one of the roles was written for my father. That was the easiest script I've ever written. It was about my 5th, and it was the first one where I had an actor in mind for one of the characters, which made it much easier to write.
Okay.
And I'm just about to begin one with a lot of people in it, and that'll be my first effort.
With a lot of characters?
A lot of characters, 8 or maybe 9 or maybe 10.
Well, now, aren't you bucking a trend there? Because they always say with the economics of theater today, live theater, Waiting for Godot is a large cast now.
Yes, exactly. One set, small cast, and that's true. And
what does that mean for you then with 8 characters? I mean, is that just less likely to get picked up by?
Maybe, but universities, when I look for markets, colleges need large casts because they want as many of their students to be involved as possible.
Right.
So they're always looking for Time of Your Life and the plays that have a huge cast, especially with men. But
now, let me stop you right there, young lady. Especially men, is that because there's sort of a bias towards male characters, or there are stories they want to tell about men?
I think I'm wrong about that, actually. It seems like usually it's hard to find. I'm trying to remember when I was in college, trying to find enough work for the male actors,
for the male actors, okay. Because my intuition says to me that it's hard. Maybe I'm thinking of Hollywood more, where it's hard to get a good role
for a
if
woman.
You're a woman actor.
Yes, especially an older
but not necessarily
woman.
in the theater world as much. Maybe. Okay. Maybe I've been educated then.
I try to do something specific with each play, and in fact, the one I just finished, the quandary of good roles for older women was something that I addressed. So one of my characters is in her 60s, and the other is 39, which is the age I was when I wrote it. So I'm hoping that I'm
So there's a little autobiography in here, and Dad
sure.
makes an appearance, and so
Sure. There's always autobiography.
What kind of things do you like to write about?
Love is
Yeah.
popular. Metaphors, which is one of my dangers. I tend to start with the metaphor, and I usually have to try to find something a little bit more practical to hang the play on, and then let the metaphor come in organically.
Yeah.
I really like odd juxtapositions, and I like trying to catch people at a moment when they're about to make a big change, a moment of crisis.
Sounds good. Sounds engaging.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
Yeah. We have a minute or so left, and I wanted to ask you, you write a play. You struggle over this. There's a lot of you in it. All the cliches are true. What's your next step with that piece then? How do you sell it? You mentioned colleges. We have a healthy local theater scene. What's your next step for a playwright?
A lot,
You schmooze?
which is difficult for me. It's kind of an irony because writers are often introspective people, and to have to schmooze is hard for some of us.
Are there good schmooze spots in town? I mean, you
Oh
go
yeah,
to certain
there
places
are
where
organizations you can join, and you go to theater a lot, and you chat in the lobbies. You workshop it. A play never seems to be done. You're constantly tinkering with it. You send scripts out cold, and I have some friends who've gotten produced that way, which is, of course, the best of all.
That's the brass ring. You grab it, and there it is.
Exactly.
Playwright Center? You're
Yes,
involved
that's
there?
one of them.
Yep.
I'm a member there.
Yeah. Okay.
And Dramatists Guild, which is national, but I also belong to that.
So there are some support organizations.
Yes, and then the internet, again.
Back to the internet.
Yeah, I've made some great friends on the internet.
Friend of the arts.
Yeah.
That's great. And we've run out of time. Thank you very much for sharing a little bit about your career. It's pleased to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, in addition to the great theater scene we have here in the Twin Cities, the video production and post-production industry in Minnesota is just booming, award-winning. You see these people involved in famous things like movie productions. What's coming up in November is the 6th annual Minnesota Electronic Theater, and Janet's going to be right back here with 3 guests who've really been instrumental in putting that together: Larry Lamb, Daniel Gumnit, and Stan Bissinger. So to start out with, let's take a look at one of those gentlemen's pieces that will be part of the Minnesota Electronic Theater. Jan will be right back after this.
Get your kicks anytime. What you really wanna watch is Pop 29.
Catch more of your moments this holiday weekend. Yeah, whatever. Now you talk to your mom. Huh? And if you're gonna drink, don't drive.
Welcome back, everybody. You just saw an example of some work that was created by IVL, and I happen to have Mr. Daniel Gumnit here with us. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you, Jane.
Daniel is president and owner of IVL here in Minneapolis. Also with me here is Larry Lamb of Lamb & Company. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you.
And Stan Bissinger, who's here representing SIGGRAPH.
Thank you.
And is also an instructor at the School of Communication Arts in Minneapolis. Thank you all for being here. We're all here to talk about the Minnesota Electronic Theater, an exciting event that's coming up.
Yep.
Stan, SIGGRAPH has been working with me on this event for a number of years. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what SIGGRAPH is.
Sure. SIGGRAPH actually is the computer graphics component of ACM, which is the Association for Computer Machinery And it's basically an organization that facilitates and encourages and enhances the creation of computer graphics. And actually, in the area of SIGGRAPH, it's more print in computer graphics as well, and animation. And it's an educational branch as well as helping to promote the commercial end of it as well.
And you have meetings throughout the year, various places here in Minneapolis.
Right. We're just kicking off. In fact, just last night we had our kickoff for our fall series. There'll be 3 meetings, one in October and one in November, which is the Electronic Theater, and then we'll have some meetings in the spring. But during the December, January months, it gets a little difficult to get people together, so we don't try. And in the summer, obviously, the main event is the SIGGRAPH convention, which is going to be in New Orleans this next year.
Well, that being said, and thank you, by the way, for working with me on the event every year and making this possible.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
I just want to tell both of you, I had the pleasure of looking at your reels, and once again, I am in awe of the work that you're creating and the work that is coming out of this market. I think it is, I wonder and marvel at the creative aspect of this, and then the technology that enables you to be able to create this work. Are you still in awe of what you do? I'd like both of you to address that.
Well, let me start. Yes, I am very much. All along it's been a grand adventure. I've thought, not knowing where it's really going year to year, but knowing that if it's anything like last year, it'll be an adventure. There'll be new things to learn. There'll be new tools to use and to investigate. New people, and new ways of using the tools to make. I think we're all in the business of making great pictures and that move, and that's still an adventure.
Daniel?
Well, we have an awful lot of fun, and I think, as with Larry's company, as the new technology comes out, it allows our people to have more fun because there's less of a barrier between their creative thought and what's going to happen on the screen. And in a sense, the technology keeps getting out of the way of everybody and letting them do what they want to do.
Do clients come to you with a vision, or do they have real specific things often, or is it sometimes just a combination of that, and you just have to go, or this just wild, harebrained idea where they want to turn this into that, and you go, well, I have the machines to do that. Is that how it works, or?
Well, there isn't a set rule of thumb on how we get things. We get everything from concepts to here's the finished film. I want it to look. I want you to change the color here to something else. The process of working with the client and determining what it is that they are really after oftentimes means that we do want to get something specific from them, and then we'll in turn kind of think it through from our level and spit it back to them and hopefully create a dialogue between the two of us to where they can get what they want conceptually. We can get something that we're happy to produce creatively, and that uses both our people and our equipment to its best advantage.
We have a philosophy that this is really an educational process for our clients as well as for us. And our clients are experts at what they do, and we try to be experts at what we do. And in a sense, we're always, as things are changing so quickly, there's no way our clients could ever keep up with the technology, let alone having us keep up with the technology. And so we spend a lot of time working with our clients to help them understand what now is possible. And as they learn now what is possible, they're coming up with more exciting ideas all the time.
I think there's another thing that we could touch on, that in the last several years, I think your business and mine both are feed heavily off of the advertising business. It has gotten smaller, maybe the wrong term, but budget constraints are a big deal, and I think we spend half of our time trying to figure out how to make this grand idea doable for them and for us. And I think that's a big new factor.
That's an excellent point. We're seeing a real shift in the business towards bigger ideas, smaller budgets, and shorter turnaround time. And it forces our people to be even more creative.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Tell me, as you're talking about your clients, obviously they're doing work here because we have capabilities and we have some wonderful talent. If you were to describe this market as a production market and as a business, tell us, how would you describe it? Are we just right up there on the cutting edge? Can people get what they need here in Minneapolis?
Clearly, with the exception of palm trees. We don't have as many palm trees as sometimes are needed. But technically, and I think creatively, Minneapolis is every bit as good as just about any city in this country and in the world. I think other companies like us got into computer animation very early. I think in part because Minneapolis had, at least in the early 80s, some really questionable film support services. They've changed somewhat, but most of our company is gosh, we've been doing computer animation since 1984, which isn't that long ago, but it makes us one of the oldest practitioners of this art in the country. And I think that has grown and developed this area into one of the key computer animation cities in North America.
You
I
concur?
have to agree with Larry. This month alone, I would say at least 75%, if not more, of our work is from out of state. And we're doing projects for Shy Day in Toronto, work for people in Philadelphia, Anaheim,
everywhere.
Cleveland. You know, that's not that way every month, but I'll tell you, this summer and fall, it's certainly that way.
That's a good thing.
I will say, however, nationally and here in the Twin Cities, I think the first half of this year was, I think people were really holding on to their money. And it was not the most robust animation or special effects market that we've seen. I think that's turning around in a major way. People are now spending the money that they've been sitting on, but for some reason people seem to sit on money in the first part of this year.
Stan, as a teacher, and you are bringing students into this business, how do you describe this market?
Well, I think it's definitely a growth market. The opportunities to do animation, due to the fact that the systems that can do animation are becoming more affordable on a lower level. I mean, not at the level that these gentlemen are working at, but it is coming down for everybody. It's getting easier for them as well as for students as well. But to give you a comparison, when I started to teach animation in 1990, the software that they were using was $12,000 just for the software, not the hardware. And now, and at the time when I was teaching, the students were basically only being able to perform the animation in class. And now, I won't get into all the names and so forth, but they're able to purchase the software and actually do their work at home, which enables them to go into a freelance situation with a lot less of the, without the financial barrier to entry. So the bottom line is that you could go back to an old phrase, the power to the people, but they're having a chance to take their ideas and put it into a media that they want to articulate their ideas in, and it's working out very nicely for them. I might also add, besides the commercial animation, which Larry and Dan are involved in, there is a very large gaming market growing as well. And we're placing probably as many students in gaming markets as we are in the commercial and animation markets.
Gaming markets meaning?
The Nintendo, Sega games, like Myst and the kind of three-dimensional environments. So the 3D animation modeling has become a major component to the whole virtual reality of the gaming market, and it's becoming very popular, and that's moving on as well.
If I could take that idea a step further, I think, at least from my perspective, computer animation, or the use of computers in making pictures that move, has become ubiquitous. I mean, it used to be kind of a niche market that, there's only a few companies like ourselves that did it. Now, every post-production company, I think soon every offline edit company, every live action company are using computers and 3D graphics and animation techniques in just about everything they do. So it's no longer kind of as isolated a little niche industry as it once was. It now is, everybody is doing it.
It's everywhere. But as the barrier to entry is lowering, the expectations on the high end are going up. So while for very little money, one of your students can buy a computer and do beautiful work, in order to do the very highest end work, it's still requiring large computers like Larry has, or dedicated gear that we have. And while the smaller computers are capable of doing amazing things, there's a time element involved that makes it difficult to do the highest end work.
I think that also there's the level of complexity of the images that we're all making oftentimes require teams, and you need a group of people to put together. How you put those teams together, I think, is changing. It may be, and it is, that you go out and gather a bunch of freelance people. That's the way it's done in Los Angeles, and to some extent in San Francisco, and beginning to happen here in Minnesota. As compared to the old model, where it used to be, for the longest time, if I didn't have them in my employ, I couldn't get them.
Sure.
There just weren't any freelance people in Minneapolis. That's changed. But the need to have teams has not. And I think the bigger the projects, the more important it is to have groups of people that know how each other works, know how the facility works, and are able to navigate the software as a group.
I think that not only are you building teams of freelancers within your company, but I think companies are teaming with each other more. And one company may have some SGIs and do the animation, and then come to a company like mine for the compositing, or they may go to Larry for the motion capture and bring all the stuff back to their shop and do all the rendering. I think as all of our, and that's one thing that is good about the Minneapolis market, which is improving, is that sense of cooperation is improving, and there are other markets where people won't even talk to each other.
Yeah, I think that's what this event is about too. It gives everybody an opportunity to see each other's work. Speaking of which, I do want to show just a little bit of some a piece that you did that you called performance animation, Larry. Briefly, just a quick description of what we're seeing here.
A technology that we've been working on for 6-7 years almost now, whereby we can, as compared to having an animator pick out keyframes and having the computer work out in-betweens, which is the way traditional animation has been done since Max Fleischer. But rather than go that route, to actually have a performer perform the motion. And we have technology that, actually several technologies, one of which you can put magnetic sensors on various parts of a performer. They can perform whatever action you want, and I think the piece that we're going to be looking at, there's a mime that's going through not sure what it is, but and her action is recorded, sampled at somewhere between 50 and 100 samples a second. The computer remembers the position of each one of those sensors, and you can then apply that position data to a character, and the character will do exactly what the performer did. And I think that's from the beginning concept to where I think it's going. There's a tremendous need for quality actors that are animators, as there always has been. I mean, a great animator is also a great actor. To be a great animator, a draftsman, or a computer artist, and a great actor is a rare commodity. But there are just a tremendous number, and especially in this community, of really quality performers, actors. And it's our hope that we can harness some of that talent in the animation process. And to that end, we're pursuing it full bore.
Let's watch the tape. Well, folks, that was just a taste of what you will see at the Minnesota Electronic Theater. Thank you, Larry, for that piece and for being here, and Daniel for your coming over this afternoon, and also Stan. The Minnesota Electronic Theater takes place Wednesday, November 8th at the Fine Line Music Cafe in downtown Minneapolis from 5 to 8 p.m. It's a wonderful event. I hope you will come and take a look at the wonderful work. Thanks again.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you, Janet. Before Phill comes back to wrap up the show with me, we bring you some Mexican dance in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month.
Well, Janet, that was a nice segment.
Good
Interesting stuff they're producing out
Good
there.
stuff.
Well, next month, very excited. We're going to have the director of the Minnesota State Arts Board, Sam Grabarsky, on, and a big panel discussion about an arts education initiative that Dayton Hudson Corporation is pushing in this town.
Ooh, you're doing some good work.
Big stuff.
Should be interesting. We've got the events calendar coming up, too. So thanks for watching. I'm Janet Zahn.
I'm Phill Lindsay. See you next time on Artifacts.
AGOA.
AGOJ.
AGOA.
One more time, how do you pronounce?
Eiji, like a capital A, capital G, O, way.